Welcome back, everyone, to the 2016 Quad City Chaos Live at the Bunker in Downsview Park here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I'm the Derby Nerd here with Mr. Whistler, and you are watching Layer9.ca simulcast on WFTDA.tv. Final game of the opening day between the hosts, Toronto Roller Derby's All-Stars versus Queen City Roller Girls' Lake Effect Furies. This is quite a rivalry going back quite a distance, too.
Indeed, and we do call this the Battle of the QEW, the highway along southern Ontario that does link these two cities, Toronto and Buffalo. We'll be getting underway shortly. Earlier today, Toronto with a victory over Roller Derby Quebec, Les Duchesses.
That's right, and that was a 212-97 score. So kicking things off on a positive note, 1-0 on the season. And, of course, Queen City played earlier as well. And they picked up a pretty big victory over their rivals, Tri-City, the Thunder. It was 209-71 was the final score in that one.
That's right. Basically, everybody's a rival here this weekend. A lot of familiarity, of course, Roller Derby Quebec, Les Duchesses, a new opponent for most of the teams here this weekend. But long histories, Tri-City. This is Tri-City's third appearance at Quad City Chaos. This is only the second appearance at Quad City Chaos for Queen City's Furies. First since 2013, I want to say.
Yeah, and first since 2012 for Tri-City. This is the sixth time that Toronto and Queen City have played each other. Toronto has the slight disadvantage, right? 3-2 advantage for Queen City after the slight upset in last year's playoffs, a 3-point victory for the Furies over Toronto. A last gasp victory. So Toronto will be looking for a little bit of revenge, and Queen City will try to defeat Toronto for 2 times in a row for the first time ever.
So right now we are looking at the Lake Effect Furies doing their intros out on the track. Lake Effect Furies for this game, again from Queen City, coming in this weekend ranked at number 51 in the WFTDA. They are going to be wearing teal. Quick run-through of that roster. Number 1027, Bricks Hit House. 153, Low Hits Griffin. 198, Blackrock Bruiser. 240, Ivana Layerout. 26 is Murphy. 46 is Midnight Maniac. 505, Chicken Demolish. 51, Dana Skull Crusher. 52, Sabrina Schreier. 56, Vagina Warrior. 60 is Pepper Sticks. 622, Libralian. 666, Incinerator. And 82, Tuesday Hula. The bench being managed by Guillotine and Coach Andy, capably aided by Papa Wow.
And you are now looking at your home team, the hosts of the Quad City Chaos, Toronto Roller Derby All-Stars. And today on the track you will see in 01 Commander Will Recker, number 1017 co-captain Bigley Smalls, number 1111 Wolverina, number 138 Devachka, number 1485 Victory Lap, number 16 Stabby Road, number 210 Boxcar, number 23 Betty Bomber, number 25 Lexicon, number 333 Monster Muffin, number 422 Beaver Mansbridge, number 483 Low Blow Palooza, number 55 Joss Whelan, number 76 Getcha Kicks, also skating as Watson this weekend. And our alt is number 15, Rose Mary's Rabies. That is your Toronto Roller Derby All-Stars. And on the bench, flying Brian Kilman, long time now bench manager for Toronto Roller Derby, and Muscle Car. In his debut on the bench for All-Star level travel team Roller Derby. He does have some experience bench coaching in Tri-City Roller Derby's House League with the Vicious Dishes. But this is his first opportunity here at the big time.
Indeed, making the transfer along with Commander Will Recker from Tri-City. I think they were a package deal. A quick run-through of the officiating roster for this game. The crew head referee is Just Mo. Inside pack referee will be Divine Intervention. The jammer referees are Duke Skellington and Julius Seizure. Outside pack referees are Full Nelson from the Chicago outfit, Samiracle from Toronto Roller Derby, and Mattis Faction representing Burger City. Crew head NSO for this crew is Funny Pack. Of course, a big thank you to the tournament head officials this weekend. The tournament head referee is Parking Lot of the Hammer City Roller Girls, and the tournament head NSO is Sam Burgess of Old Capital City Roller Derby.
Do you know I'm the captain of the Burger City T-Ball team?
I didn't know there was a Burger City T-Ball team.
There is. Yeah, if you want to join.
What's your record?
Right now we're 0-0. All games have been canceled due to rainouts. I made a little bit of an error earlier. I said that Queen City has the advantage in the 5 meetings between these two teams, but it's actually Toronto Roller Derby has the 3-2 advantage. They had won 2 in a row going into last year's playoffs. The biggest victory came back in 2012, and that was a CN Power victory, 184-92. That's the biggest gap we've seen between these two teams. We talked, though, about how Queen City has come in here looking very put together, very solid. Had a personal best victory over Tri-City Thunder earlier today. And I think they're going to be looking to build off of their playoff win over Toronto last year.
Well, indeed, the Queen City roster, very little turnover from last year compared to the Toronto roster. Toronto roster coming into this weekend only with 3 returning skaters who were on the charter in Omaha, who had been full-time members, I should say, because they did have a couple of call-ups that are now full-time members of the charter. Toronto is without Mia Culprit this weekend. Mia Culprit with an injury in warm-ups earlier today. Also without Mad Megs, number 420. Mad Megs out with an injury as well this weekend.
And that was 2 of the 3 returning skaters as well. So very new lineups. And we are underway. Final game of the opening day of the 2016 Quad City Chaos. And it is Beaver Mansbridge jamming in the pink for Toronto. She is pushing that pack through turn number 2. And getting through is lead jammer status. A cutting penalty onto Lai Brawlian for the opening jam. And that is going to be a big advantage here early on for Toronto. What a breakout weekend it's been so far for Beaver Mansbridge. Looking every bit the equal of her much more experienced counterpart. Lai Brawlian gets through on the first pass. 5 points for Toronto. An early lead here for the hosts.
Beaver there on that pass, actually just causing a bit of destruction, not a pack destruction, I should say, but just destroying people as she cleared some path for herself by throwing a teammate at a Fury.
She was a call-up last year for the playoffs for Toronto, and just the level of athleticism she brings to the track is unbelievable. Libralian now back on the track. Cover is off as she enters into that sprawling pack right now, just onto the second straightaway. Beaver through for another scoring pass. Early lead here for Toronto, 10-0. Libralian also through on her completed pass in the pack. Stopped up at turn number 3.
So now they lay in wait on the straightaway. Beaver goes to the outside and calls it. No more points on that pass, though. Went over the line before passing any hips. But that's still good for 10 points. Wicked Skatewear loves to make you look and feel fabulous. Plus, they like glitter and neon, a lot of neon. Visit wickedskatewear.com to experience the shenanigans.
This is a big start for Toronto. Now up at the 1234 Skate Company start line. It's Incinerator in the teal, not turquoise, as I mentioned earlier. And she's up against Lexicon for Toronto.
Yeah, Incinerator with a big game earlier today as well. Looking very dominant. Although at the moment, it is Lexicon with the lead jammer for Toronto.
That's 2 in a row now for Toronto. Joss Wheeling sitting in the penalty box on a low block penalty, so it's a 4-3 pack advantage for Queen City. Have not been able to do anything with it yet. Incinerator now going in, still trying to work through her first pass. Takes off the star. Sneaks around Betty Bomber on the inside and gets through clear at turn 2. She's now eligible to score. Already picking up points, though, is Lexicon. Gets knocked to the outside, calls it off, but another 4 points picked up for Toronto. 14-0, 2.5 in this opening half.
Well, and that's got to be really, really important right now for Toronto, getting those first 14 points as they have. Coming into this weekend, again, knowing that there's a significant turnover, looking to see what this team is indeed made of. Queen City, of course, Toronto looking now to get a bit of revenge based on what happened in Omaha, that 3-point heartbreaker.
Although they did lead for the majority of that game as well, and just lost it on the last jam. It was a very messy game. Not much defense being played in that one, and we're already seeing a lot of defense here. Libralian now back on the track and trying to get around Stabby Road. Pushes her to the outside, taking some big hits, absorbs them, stays in bounds, picks up the first lead jammer status of this game for Queen City, and it's Wolverina in the 2-2 for Toronto, being held back at turn 1.
A lot of physicality already in the early going in this game. We were looking at Boxcar along with Stabby Road, just hammer and nailing on Libralian, but Libralian getting the better of it. Libralian now putting Queen City on the board with their first 5 points of the game.
14-5 now, nearing the 4-minute mark. You can see the pack stopped up at turn 3 once again. Wolverina knocked to the inside, forced to take a knee. Boxcar last line of defense. Stabby Road coming in to help her out, but Libralian with some nice moves on the track pulls through on the inside for another 5. 14-10 now.
Bigley Smalls taking his seat in the Camp Derby penalty box for a track cutting penalty.
Bigley Smalls also having a big term. She's the lone skater returning from the Quad City Chaos roster of 2015. Wolverina with a bit of a stash allows her to get through the pack, but another scoring pass for Libralian, and suddenly Queen City back in the lead. The first lead change of the opening half. Stabby Road at the back of the pack trying to peel one off to force a call off. Libralian, though, eventually gets all the points, calls it off. A big jam, 19-0 for Libralian. Last year, Libralian scored 158 points in that playoff game and that victory over Toronto. So look out for Libralian. She's a heartbreaker for Toronto fans.
Well, right now, the statistics we have available to us show us that she currently has 100% of Queen City's points with that 19-point pickup. Queen City 19, Toronto 14, 25 minutes left in the first half.
And now up on the 12:34 Coast skate line, it is Devachka up against Incinerator. Incinerator comes through on the outside, picks up another lead jammer status, 2 in a row for Queen City. Devachka held at the back of the pack at turn 1. Eventually makes her way through on the inside, a nice little juke, saw the opening being made by Bigley Smalls, took it. Incinerator hits the pack. Incinerator, a tall, very physical jammer, offering a nice contrast to some of the other jammers that we see from Queen City, and she does pick up points, extending the lead, but a nice little steal there at the very end for Devachka. It's now 22-15, 5.5 minutes in.
With the studio only 30 minutes north of Toronto, you can't get much more local than this. Monster Muffin Clothing is proudly made in Canada, providing quality derby apparel to the world. Check them out and fall in love at monstermuffin.com.
Betty Bomber in the Camp Derby penalty box to start this one off. Beaver Mansbridge facing off against Murphy, number 26 in the teal. Her first jam of the game. It's all 4 blockers trying to contain Beaver Mansbridge on the first straightaway. Beaver goes to the outside. Gets knocked out, forced to come back in.
Beaver exhibiting that fine toe stop work that she's known for.
She can absorb hits as well. And she's doing so to get through as lead jammer, her second pickup of this game. And that ends a run of 2 in a row. Murphy still being swallowed up and being held nicely here by Boxcar and Bigley Smalls. Bigley Smalls, though, heading to the Camp Derby penalty box. Murphy is through in her initial pass. And Beaver through with 4, calls it off. Toronto back within 3 now, 22-19.
Yeah, so Bricks Head House picking up a forearm penalty during that jam. Both teams relatively clean sheets, although that was actually only the second box strip picked up so far by Queen City. Looks like 2, 3, 4, 5 actual box strips so far for Toronto, so a bit of a deficit there on the whiteboards.
1 in the box each. Lexicon jamming in the pink for CN Tower, but inside is Libralian through quickly. Lead jammer picked up. She scored 19 points the last time she managed to get lead. Lexi now had a strong game early against Roller Derby Quebec, but running into Vagina Warrior on the inside. And the blockers holding her at turn 2 is Libralian already in, going right through that Toronto wall. Big 5-point pickup, extending Queen City's lead. Lexicon still having a hard time with that trio of Queen City blockers. Forced to reset, and just like that, Libralian back around the track and through the pack with another big pickup. And there has been a star pass now. Will Recker, the pivot with the star, knocked to the outside at turn 4 and forced to reset at the second straightaway. Re-enters the track. Bigley Smalls trying to chase down Libralian, couldn't quite reach her. 5 more points. Another huge jam from Libralian.
Libralian almost skating this one unopposed. There is a Toronto jammer on the track, but it's not showing on the scoreboard, and now there won't be a Toronto jammer on the track as Commander Will Recker has cut the track on her way to the Camp Roller Derby penalty box. This is now a power jam for Queen City.
And Libralian continuing to be a Toronto killer. She had a 19-point jam just a few moments ago. She's sitting on 20 right now and coming through in another scoring pass. Monster Muffin Lexicon forced her outside, and that jam comes to its natural conclusion. 20 more points on the board for Libralian, 42-19. 9 minutes in. Wow, what a start.
Yeah, and there may actually be a couple more points in the offing here. No, there are not. Julius Caesar, the jammer ref, was conferring with the OPRs, and a donut goes up on the board. So we are in a team timeout now called by Toronto. This official team timeout has been brought to you by Roller Derby Athletics, the official training partner of Toronto Roller Derby. ToRD would like to thank Roller Derby Athletics for making them safe, strong, and unstoppable. For off-skate fitness training, check out their programs at rollerderbyathletics.com.
And this is a WFTDA recognized tournament. And you can see a complete schedule of this year's WFTDA recognized tournaments at WFTDA.com/events. And of course, you may be tuning in on WFTDA.tv. This is a simulcast presentation with layer9.ca.
And, of course, if you are watching right now, you'll see a little eyeball symbol on the upper right of your screen. If you click on that, it'll open in a new window roster information, open information about the schedule. It will also open up a donation box, layer9.ca, the producer of this content. Any donations you can make will help defray costs for the weekend, so we'd be very grateful if you chipped in.
And that that timeout brought to you by Roller Derby Athletics is now over. And it's going to be Incinerator all alone on the 1234 Skate Coast start line on this power start.
Everybody's starting up at the pivot line. That gives Incinerator a bit of room. However, the pack is up and moving quickly.
We've now already gotten to the second straightaway. All four Toronto blockers locking in now on the defense. Boxcar is the pivot. Getcha kicks. Stabby Road out there. Joss Wheeling heading back to the penalty box on a high block. Lead jammer is called for Incinerator. Now 3-3 in the pack. Dead stopped in the second straightaway. Incinerator round quickly. Sabrina Schreier working some offense, trying to split up the pack. Will Recker back on the track. The star is in her hands. Incinerator through on a scoring pass. Stabby Road, the last line of defense, couldn't quite stop her up. Now Recker trying to get through. A nice pass to Boxcar. Incinerator, though, going to look for another scoring pass before calling this one off. And makes it through easy. A nice little juke out, inside out past Getcha Kicks and Stabby Road. 9-point jam for Incinerator. And that increases Queen City's lead to 51-19, just nearing the 10-minute mark. Yeah,
plenty of room and real estate left on the track for Incinerator to work with there. That is something they're going to need to work on if they hope to keep them in check.
Yeah.
New jammer on the 1234 Skate Code jammer line for Queen City right now. That is number 51, Dana Skullcrusher, facing off against quadruple one Wolverina.
Skullcrusher had a big game earlier against Tri-City, part of a really strong three-jammer rotation for Queen City. Now having a hard time, though, getting past the quartet of Toronto blockers. Vagina Warrior pops back to try and play some offense and free her jammer. Up front, though, the Queen City blockers doing a really nice job of holding Wolverina off, pushes her to the inside. Both packs just laying on the defense hard now as Vagina is forced to bridge between the two packs. Monster Muffin trying to move up and work some offense now as well. Wolverina, though, having a hard time going one-on-one against these Queen City blockers. Finally able to find some room. A nice little pirouette around. She is your lead jammer, but she got swallowed back up by the pack.
Yeah, meanwhile, at the back, the Toronto blockers did have Dana Skullcrusher, but she has now sprung star in hand on that initial pass. Wolverina getting the signal from the bench to call it. No points picked up for either side on that one, Nerd.
Really nice pack work led by Pepper Sticks. The pivot there to swallow back Wolverina and hold her in the pack and force that call off. No points on the board for Toronto despite that all-important lead jammer pickup.
Rollerbones, turbos, and bone Swiss bearings makes for a winning combination. Find out more at rollerbones.com.
All right, jam now back underway. Libralian jamming up against a trio of Toronto blockers and another trio of Queen City blockers holding Toronto jammer Devachka. Devo now working with two, but Libralian has pushed the Toronto defense all the way up to turn number one, and she is through. Devachka, though, also through, but a quarter of a track back. There are some exposed Queen City points at the back of the pack, so Libralian's going to have to be careful. Pops her way through the pack. Does pick up 3. 4. All 4 points for Libralian. A nice heads-up pace, swinging her hips at the last moment to pick up all Toronto points and call it off just in time. As Beaver Mansbridge now back out on the line. Okay.
So far in the early going, it looks like we are seeing a bit more discipline on the Lake Effect Fury side, only with 4 box trips thus far. Looking at, looks like 10 so far on the Toronto side of the ledger.
Yeah, and Toronto had some penalty troubles early on against Roller Derby Quebec as well, which kept on letting Quebec get back into the game. So they're going to have to watch that as this game and this tournament goes on. Incinerator is your lead jammer. Beaver Mansbridge, though, out quickly as well and moving fast to catch up to her. It's going to force a call off, but not before. Oh, she does steal two. Nice steal from Beaver Mansbridge, and Incinerator did not pick up any.
Yeah, it was a heads-up play there by Betty Bomber, number 23. With the drive out at turn 1, was able to get her over the line and keep her from picking up any points on that pass.
First points in a long time, though, for CN Power. They've been stuck at Toronto All-Stars, They'd been stuck at 19 for quite a while. 16 and a half to go. 34 points is the difference. Murphy once again jamming for Queen City and just made quick work of Will Recker, the lone blocker on the track. Lexicon having a hard time with Schreier. Recker peels Schreier off, and Lexicon tries to go through the inside, but it was adequately blocked.
And reinforcements come back on the track, but Bigley Smalls unable to contain Murphy.
And Lexicon has picked up a back blocking penalty. This is going to be a power jam for Murphy and the Queen City Roller Girls. Already 5 points on the jam. 60 now to 21 is the score. Boxcar back on the track, so we've got a full pack for Toronto on this power kill.
Looking at Boxcar right now, trying to get back up with her teammates. They've got her trapped at the back, though, does Queen City.
Yeah, nice work from Bricks Hithouse to keep Boxcar back and keep control of that pack. And 5 more points, so a 10-point jam on that power jam as we near the midway point of this opening half. 65-21, Queen City in control right now.
And the power jam continues. Lexicon still in the Camp Roller Derby penalty box. There you see Lexicon serving the rest of that back blocking penalty. So this is a power start for Libralian and the Lake Effect Furies. Full complement of blockers, though, on the track to start this one for Toronto.
Oh, and Libralian goes right through the middle. Wow, I had no idea she managed that one. Nice work, though, from the Queen City pack.
Threading the needle, indeed.
They've kept Betty Bomber now separated from her blockers. Libralian through now, facing off against 3 of them. Monster Muffin pushes her to the inside. Victory Lap tries to get a hit in, cannot hold her.
Well, and separating Bomber, what that's doing is it's negating the potential for any possible considerations of a star pass for Toronto as Lexi does return from the 12:34 Skako penalty box. The Camp Roller Derby penalty box, I should say.
So we have now passed the midway point, and Queen City increasing their lead ever so slightly. 52 points now is the difference. And just looking so much tighter. And again, we talked about it earlier during the Tri-City game as well. And you can just see the consistency in the roster, not only over this past season, but over the last few years for Queen City as they work their way through a couple years in the D2 playoffs and last year making their debut in Division 1. And you can just see that playing at this high level together for so long, you can see the strength. And you're seeing it right now with that back wall of Queen City blockers holding back Wolverina, Vagina Warrior, Sabrina Schreier, and Blackrock Bruiser is that trio. Bigley Smalls now leading the defense at the front of the pack. Only 2 left to beat. It's Boxcar and Bigley. Doing a nice job holding Incinerator. Trying to push her to the outside, but they are out of play. Forced to let her go. Another lead jammer status. No, a high block being called. Excuse me. Sending Incinerator to the Camp Roller Derby penalty box. It's going to be a power jam here for Wolverina and Toronto. They're going to have to make use of it, though, as they try and get back in this game. Queen City very quickly pulling away. Wolverina backed up, reset, took a moment, tried to power her way through the inside, got knocked down.
Everybody had gone down there for a moment. Now we're seeing Getcha Kicks along with Monster Muffin and Boxcar. they're all coming in on some to run some offense there. Lots of pinballing, though, happening there beyond the pillar. Monster Muffin going to take a seat in the Camp Roller Derby penalty box.
Yeah, it was a nice try on the offense from Toronto, but Bricks Hithouse was well ahead of it and was able to hold her position. And we're seeing a great penalty kill from Queen City. Incinerator back on the track, through on her initial pass, and now able to score. Wolverina has not picked up lead jammer status yet.
Only 30 seconds left on the jam clock, too.
And Boxcar now does have the star in her hand. A nice pass from Wolverina. That means there will be no lead jammer status to either team. It's going to go the full 20 seconds remaining.
Boxcar is showing a bit of promise here on this one, evading those last couple of Queen City blockers. Queen City, though, is going to cycle up to the front, though. Try to see if they can prevent any scoring. Boxcar around the outside and does pick up 1-2 points. No points there on that final pass for Queen City. But that jam does go 9-2 in favor of the Furies. They're up 82-23, under 12 minutes left in the first half.
Yeah, nice hustle from Boxcar, the veteran, just to get by Schreier and picked up the point in the box as well. We were talking earlier about how Boxcar has literally been playing roller derby forever in Canadian terms.
Forever and everywhere.
And everywhere, yes. She has been playing roller derby here in Canada since 2006. Another player in this tournament playing for the Sexpos, Cheese Grater, also playing roller derby since 2006. That was the year flat track roller derby was born in this country. Multiplayer block sending Pepper Sticks to the box. Be a little bit of a pack advantage here for Toronto. And it does work out. A lead jammer status given to Devachka. Dana Skullcrusher has now taken off the start and has passed it. A nice quick pass from Queen City. Looking to force a call off. Devo faked in, popped out, has one to beat now for the Ford. Calls it off, picks up all 4 points for Toronto. A very important pickup here.
Yeah, Midnight Maniac unable to catch up to the pack and score. Did see a high blocking penalty issued to Tuesday Hula towards the end of that jam. Tuesday Hula taking a seat in the Camp Roller Derby penalty box.
So it will be 4-3 Toronto in the pack. Oh, looks like 4-2 in the pack. Yes, two blockers in the box for Queen City. So big opportunity here with Beaver Mansbridge jamming as well. Blackrock Bruiser falls to the inside. Bricks Hithouse tries to catch Beaver, but Beaver had just enough speed to get past her and pick up a second lead jammer status in a row for Toronto.
That could have ended disastrously, but Beaver able to stay on her feet. And when you're hit by a Bricks Hithouse, it's going to cause all sorts of trauma, but Beavers come back to the bench with their look on her face like, I weathered that storm.
I survived that. Bricks Hithouse is not only just a fun, playful, punny name, it's a descriptor as well.
It is, and it can get you in a lot of trouble on the interwebs
Yes.
if you don't say it quite right.
All right, the Camp Derby penalty box is almost emptied out. Tuesday Hula is standing 4-3 advantage very briefly here for Toronto. Murphy back on the 12:34 Coast Skate start line up against Lexicon, who gets quick advantage now, pushing against the 3-wall of Queen City blockers. Vagina Warrior knocks her to the inside. Monster Muffin moves forward to play some offense. Peels Pepper Sticks off. Nice recovery, though, from Vagina Warrior, the veteran. Going one-on-one against Lexi, forces her to the outside, and she'll be forced to reset. So close to lead, but unable to get it, and that's going to go instead to Murphy. Manages to get through. Lexi also through.
Lexi indeed was so close to picking up that status and then got trapped by a blocker she'd already passed. That prevented her from passing the last one.
Yeah, nice work there from Vagina Warrior on that last jam for Queen City to ensure no points, though, scored. As Murphy called that off as she entered the pack. Wolverina now with another opportunity up against Incinerator. Toronto very briefly at the start line has decided to move forward. They have the slight disadvantage in the pack.
Toronto again sending Boxcar number 210 out there with the pivot stripe. Don't be surprised to see more star passes if their jammers get in trouble.
And Wolverina did get in trouble last time through. An Incinerator through quickly, and Wolverina reached for the cap. Thought twice about it, though, and has kept it on. Incinerator coming quickly up to that pack as it's dealing with Wolverina. Toronto not prepared for that scoring pass. Wolverina does pass to Boxcar. Boxcar now through, hoping to limit the damage here. 5 points already on the board. 51 points is the lead. Incinerator looking to add to that. Calls it off after getting 1 point at least, and that's all it's going to be for Incinerator. So nice hustle by Boxcar to get it back around. 6-0 jam for Queen City.
Yeah. Bit of a dangerous star pass the way that one played out. It was telegraphed a little bit. Again, going over the top as is it's often the shortest path. That is, however, a very easy way to pick up a high blocking penalty.
Black Rock Bruiser in the Camp Roller Derby penalty box. So Queen City pivotless on this jam. Beaver Mansbridge in the pink, trying to push through. Takes a knee, but now gets up and faces off against 2. And gets through on the inside. A nice little move there, fake to the outside, but right behind her is Librolian. Goes in for a hit, and Beaver Mansbridge evades it and gets back ahead of Librolian. What a great jammer battle we have on that one. Wow, and Beaver, though, forced to call it off, but comes off the track with a big smile on her face. It's not often you get to pull one on Librolian.
No, and these battles are getting a little more interesting right now, Derby Nerd. A lot at stake here. Lead for Queen City, still 57 points, 6.5 minutes left on the period clock.
Well, one of the big stories here at the QCC this year is that these teams are fighting for their D1 lives. All three, Tri-City, Toronto, and Queen City, were all in Division I playoffs last year. All currently sit just outside of that top 40. Devachka out on the line with Watson. Watson opens up the inside. Nice reset, though, by Schreier and the other Queen City blockers. Bricks Hithouse is that anchor at the front of that. And then on the outside, wide open, and it is, that's Dana Skullcrusher back on the jam line.
Devachka now being drawn back there by Sabrina Schreier. Devachka with the star in hand. With the stash, though, no hope of a pass in this moment. Stabby Road coming in to run a bit of offense. Devachka's pivot, Boxcar, meanwhile, is at the back running defense against Dana Skullcrusher.
Skullcrusher with some great patience, though, just waiting. No, yes, she's called lead. I saw her look back at her ref there. 5 points picked up. And chaos on the track now as a number of blockers on their way to the penalty box. Boxcar gets knocked to the outside, still has the star in her hand. Another clean, easy pass for Skullcrusher as Queen City nears the century mark. Once again, Toronto having no luck with the offense. Boxcar makes her way through. Finally able to get through. Skullcrusher with one more pass picks up 4 more points. 14-0 jam. 5 minutes to go, and Queen City has passed the century mark. 71 points.
And we are starting to see some skaters get into a little bit of penalty trouble. Got multiple skaters now on the Toronto side with over 3 or more box trips. At halftime, we'll try to get some tallies for you. So when we come out of the half, we'll be able to give you a more accurate report. Librolian, though, meanwhile, hop, skip, and a jump up the outside, picking up lead jammer status. However, Beaver Mansbridge not too far behind, but when you're behind Librolian, even a 20-foot deficit is still going to hurt you.
Great battle we're seeing between these two jammers, though, this game. And Librolian took a look back, saw Beaver Mansbridge hot on her tail, decided to call that off. It's going to be great to see these two matched up throughout the rest of this game. And another matchup we've seen quite a bit is Incinerator and Wolverina, and those two are back out there right now on the track. Incinerator has had a bit of an advantage so far. She's got all 4 of her blockers out there, all 4 of Toronto blockers as well, and they do have the 12:34 skate start line. Incinerator pushes right off the whistle. Wolverina trying to find a way on the inside. She is able to shrug off those blockers, but eventually does get knocked down to the inside, and that allows Incinerator to get through and pick up lead jammer status. Bricks Hithouse doing the damage on Wolverina on that one, and once again it's Bricks Hithouse dragging Wolverina back. Incinerator working against a trio of Toronto blockers braced well at turn number 1. Incinerator pushing. Joss Whelan trying to lead Incinerator to the outside, but Incinerator stays out of those danger areas and eventually works her way through as Toronto Pivot boxcar is sent off, opening up a lane. 5 points for Queen City.
Wolverina getting taken down hard between turns 1 and 2 at the inside line there by Sabrina Schreier. That sent her back. Wolverina still with the star in hand. Currently no pivot to pass it to. Unable to get it back on the helmet. Still just trying to complete that initial pass. A jammer soul-crushing jam right now for Wolverina. Just getting beaten up.
Yeah, Blackrock Bruiser, Bricks Hit House doing a number on Wolverina right now. This is Wolverina's first action of 2016. She doesn't play in Toronto's house league anymore, so perhaps shrugging off some off-season rust, but she is through. Great hustle and perseverance from Wolverina, but Incinerator also threw in another pass. 4 more points picked up on this, what has been a very strong jam for Incinerator and the Queen City Blockers. 14 more points. Wow, I would not have expected this amount of control, and a timeout being called
by Toronto.
That's their second timeout already of this game.
Yep. And again, this timeout is brought to you by Roller Derby Athletics, the official training partner of Toronto Roller Derby. ToRD would like to thank Roller Derby Athletics for making them safe, strong, and unstoppable. For off-skate fitness training, check out their programs at rollerderbyathletics.com. So having a look there at the Toronto skaters, all having a conversation trackside. Meanwhile, it appears this timeout has turned into an official review. Flying Brian, the bench manager for Toronto, is in the center communicating with Just Mo, the head referee of this crew. We'll have an update shortly on the nature of this review and presumably on its result.
As mentioned, these teams are battling to try and advance into the Division I playoffs this year. All the playoff dates and locations have been set, including, of course, the first D1 playoff this year. It's September 2nd. Will be in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. You can find out all that information on WFTDA.com/tournaments. Last year's playoffs were unbelievable. Every year they just seem to get better and better, and it was quite a show for the 10th anniversary. Let's see what they get for year 11 WFTDA.
Well, in fact, for the first time, not only is there a Division I tournament being held outside the United States in Montreal, there's going to be 2 Division I tournaments held outside the United States.
That's right.
Because we will also have Vancouver, British Columbia, hosted by the Terminal City Roller Girls in September 16th to 18th. So we've got 2 of them being held north of the border.
And Canada, of course, which is kind of the second country of flat track roller derby, also hosted the first D2 tournament to be hosted outside of the United States when Tri-City hosted the D2s 2 years ago. And that tournament also featured the first ever all-international tournament, WFTDA tournament final.
They're all firsts.
Between Berlin's Bear City and, of course, the victors, the Rideau Valley Vixens. Quad City Chaos continues tomorrow. We'll start things off at 11 a.m. with Queen City's Sirens, the B team, playing against the Sexpos. But we've got 2 WFTDA sanctioned showdowns. First one at 1 p.m. and then at 5 p.m. tomorrow as well. Whistler, do you have an update on this official review?
I do. Toronto was looking for a cutting call to be issued to Incinerator for having cut their own jammer during that jam. However, the no call stands, so Toronto does not retain their official review for this half.
5-on-5 in the pack. Lexicon on the inside in the pink for CN Power up against Libralian, number 622 in the teal. Currently standing to the outside. Toronto does have that line. Monster Muffin trying to hold off the outside. Jam is now underway. Libralian again seeming to just try and force her way through the middle, but now the outside has been open. Libralian very gingerly making her way through it. Nice defense here from Toronto early on as Lexicon tries to work her way past core of braced blockers at the front of that pack. Libralian getting pushed to the outside but now by Low Blow, but staying inbounds.
Saw Queen City there switch from doing a little bit of offense to going strict defense. Back blocking penalty being issued to the Toronto pivot, Betty Bomber, number 23.
And smart play by Libralian to turn her back to those Toronto blockers right on the line, knowing that any contact would be a back block, and that's what happened. Free to lane for her, and Libralian creating her own offense is the lead jammer. Hits that Toronto back wall in the second straightaway.
Commander Will Recker being the anchor on that with Low Blow Palooza and Monster Muffin, getting them to reform as Libralian was driven to the inside and went back to re-enter, give herself a bit of space.
Lexicon, though, having no luck against those Queen City blockers, now trying to push them into turn 2. The pack is somewhat split. Looks like Tuesday Hula is bridging. The pivot. Strong defense here from 2 tripods of blockers. A penalty, though, going to Queen City. Sorry, that's, sending her to the penalty box. That might have been Tuesday Hula there. Excuse me. Virginia Warrior, though, eventually works Lexicon outside and drags her back all the way behind the Toronto pack. Will Recker resetting. Goes for a big swing and a miss on Libralian, who's through for 5 more points. A big collision at turn 3. Some skaters slow to get up. Lexicon again having a hard time with Vagina Warrior. Libralian back.
Very vocal guillotine on the bench for Queen City with the directions being issued to Libralian. And as the period clock runs out, guillotine is signaling for an official review. Clock at 0 right now. They haven't put it to halftime, so we'll have to see if they believe that there's going to be an attempt for another jam, because they had gone to the halftime's time, and now they've taken that back. But Nerd, this first half, though, I mean, it's almost a 100-point lead right now for the Furies. Very dominant. We were certainly expecting, I think, to see some dominance from Queen City, but I think obviously we were expecting to see a little more pushback from Toronto than we've seen in the early going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Toronto has to be a little bit surprised by this. Queen City has come out to win this one. I mentioned earlier that the biggest gap we've ever seen between these two teams was back in 2012. It was a 184-92 victory for Toronto's CN Power at the time. So the way this game is going, the Furies could just blow that out of the water. They did that earlier against Tri-City as well, with a record-setting victory against that team too. So they're working Toronto in the same way right now.
Having a look there at Bigley Smalls, 1017, and 666 Incinerator. Just having a little quick conversation there on the track. What did you see? I don't know. What did you see?
What are they talking about? Bigley Smalls, the lone Toronto skater who was part of their 2015 Quad City Chaos roster. So one of the biggest turnovers in Toronto history. And we're seeing perhaps the results of it here with Queen City dominating like they have never before against their rivals just up the QEW. Just going to wait for a bit of an update on the official review before we take it into halftime. Mr. Whistler, what's the story?
Well, Queen City was requesting a clockwise penalty to be issued to Betty Bomber for some clockwise contact, and the officials say while there was some clockwise contact, it didn't meet the metric for a penalty, so no penalty will be issued. Queen City doesn't retain their review, but that's okay because we're at halftime now.
That's right, we are, and so they'll get another one to start the second half. All right. So that's going to be a wrap here of the opening half of the final game of day 1 of the Quad City Chaos. That's Mr. Whistler. I'm the Derby Nerd, and we'll be back after a short break.
And I think we are back.
We are.
I'm Mr. Whistler. I've got the Derby Nerd with me here, and you are watching Quad City Chaos live from the bunker in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This is an official WFTDA recognized tournament, and you are watching on layer9.ca and WFTDA TV. Quick shout out to some people out there watching at home. I know Rainbow Fight is watching out on the East Coast.
Nice.
Also a little hi, Mom, because I know my mother is watching as well.
Oh, maybe mine too. Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
Also on the East Coast.
All the moms. Well, my mom's not on the East Coast.
No.
But
yeah. And my mom's not watching with Rainbow Fight, just to make it clear.
having a viewing party.
Yeah, maybe they are.
Quick run through of the penalties from the first half. It's a 12-19 advantage in favor of the Lake Effect Furies. Only one skater on 3, and that's Tuesday Hula. On the Toronto side, Bigley Smalls with 4. And Monster Muffin and Joss Wheeling both with 3 trips to the Camp Roller Derby penalty box.
So more penalty trouble for Toronto. We saw it affect them earlier, and it's affecting them a lot here, especially with the team as prepared and as cohesive as Queen City has proven to be. In terms of stats, right now, leading scorer for the game is Libralian with 59 points on 5 for 7 in terms of leads. Equaling her in that department is Incinerator, also with 5 leads in that opening half and 41 points. The other scorers are Murphy with 10 and Dana Skullcrusher with 14 for the Lake Effect Furies. For Toronto, wow, what a story. It's been a story of shutdown for the Queen City defense. But Beaver Mansbridge is the one jammer that's had success. She's 4 for 6, so 4 leads picked up in that opening half. 20 of the 31 points for Toronto have been scored by her. No other Toronto blocker has more than 1 lead. Is Devachka with 5 points. Lexicon has 4, and the final 2 points coming from who does have the final 2 points? I guess Boxcar on a star pass.
On a star pass.
She stole 2 points at the end of a jam. That's right, and that accounts for Toronto Roller Derby's 31 points, but they are down by nearly a century here to their rivals down the QEW, 124-31.
And further down the 401 and other highways out in the Ottawa area, look at the out-of-town scoreboard right now. The new skids on the block from Montreal are currently leading the Rideau Valley Vixens 149-17.
Ouch. Montreal, of course, was just, 20-some points away from qualifying for the WFTDA Championship Tournament last year. So obviously a team to watch and off to a strong start here in 2016 as well. All right, we are about to now get underway. The second half of the final game of the opening day of the 2016 Quad City Chaos. Beaver Mansbridge up against Libralian, the 2 leading scorers for their respective teams, kicking things off here in the second half. Also have now empty penalty boxes as Tuesday Hula rejoins the Queen City pack. A big sprawling mess now as we near turn number 1. Nice knockout from Brick's Hit House, forcing Beaver Mansbridge to reset. Libralian also forced to reset. Got a big head of steam on her, came through. She'd already picked up lead jammer status. 5 points now for Queen City very quickly. 25 seconds into the second half. Beaver Mansbridge has now taken off the start and has passed it to Monster Muffin, who is through but picks up a cut as she was scrambling to get through the pack. So it's 10 points already on the board for Libralian, and now a power jam opportunity for Queen City. Not the start I don't think that Toronto wanted here in the second half.
Well, no, Libralian had, a 20-point jam in the first half?
19 and a 20-point jam.
So she had 2 of those.
Just 2 of those.
And she's already at 15. Plenty of time to go back for more, though now she does get stopped around the outside, but takes the inside. The door is open, and that's that 20. See if she can top her first half high water mark.
Nice, simple offense there from Ivana Lero to open up that inside lane. And with that dead stop pack, it's going to be really hard for Toronto to try and do anything. And a nice move from Libralian, but Betty Bomber was there to lay out the big hit. Libralian, though, already through. 5 points picked up, so another pickup. 25 points now is the score on this jam for Libralian.
Betty Bomber did go to the Camp Roller Derby penalty box for that hit. Could not see the penalty signal from here.
29 points now, and another easy pass for Libralian, just cruising through the pack. Now Toronto defense resets at turn number 4. Go to push Libralian to the outside. Another more nice offense from Ivana Layerhout, but victory lap able to knock Libralian to the outside, forces the call off as Monster Muffin was making quick work of that pack.
But Libralian goes 29-0 on that jam. Those 29 points on that jam, easily the most points for a jammer thus far at this year's Quad City Chaos.
So a huge start to the second half for Queen City. They come out looking better than they did going into the halftime. And Toronto still looking a little frazzled. It's going to have to try and find a way to break through this Queen City defense. Power start opportunity here. Incinerator, her team and the game's second leading scorer, going alone against the trio of Toronto blockers, easily gets through on the inside. Another lead jammer status picked up for the Furies. Bomber now back on the track. All 4 blockers out there for Toronto. Incinerator around. Gets pushed into her own pack by the Toronto defense.
Queen City now separating the blockers as Betty Bomber returned from the Camp Roller Derby penalty box, but they're not letting her rejoin her teammates up at the front. Monster Muffin out of that penalty box herself with a star in hand, looking to see if it gets handed off, and it does get handed off to Bigley Smalls. Bigley Smalls now the jammer of record for Toronto.
Toronto's co-captain Incinerator through, picks up another 5 points. It's going to be another 10-point jam for Queen City. So starting things off here with back-to-back double-digit jams. Just 9 points on that second pass.
But a lead of 131 points right now for Queen City. Nerd Roller Skates is your dedicated roller skate shop with everything you need for derby, rink, or park. Visit them online at nerdskates.com. They offer free shipping in Canada on orders over $150. Nerd Roller Skates for people who roll.
Queen City currently ranked just behind Toronto Roller Derby in the WFTDA rankings. Toronto Roller Derby entered the weekend at 42, Queen City at 47, but they will be looking to improve that and may already have with a big win over Tri-City earlier on. Both packs now scrambling here at turn number 1, but it's a big split up as Betty Bomber heads back to the penalty box, and that allows the Queen City jammer to get through and pick up lead jammer status. That is Murphy once again.
Yvonne Layerout also visiting the Camp Roller Derby penalty box for a multiplayer block.
Murphy with 10 points in the first half, looking to add to that now on a scoring pass. Weaves outside to in, but gets knocked to the inside by Victory Lap. Nice work with Vic and Loblo Palooza. Lexicon gets knocked to the outside by Pepper Sticks. Vagina Warrior. Now we've got a stream of Queen City blockers headed to the penalty box.
They've only got one left on the track.
It's the first time we've really seen them fall into penalty troubles, but Toronto following suit as Victory Lap heads to the Camp Germany penalty box. Only 3 blockers on the track. A big hit from Commander Will Recker, standing up Murphy on the second straightaway, forcing a call off, but Murphy had already scored all 5 of her points.
Yeah, so Murphy there in the driver's seat on that one. Yes, only had 1 blocker at one point, but with that lead call and Toronto yet to get into a scoring position, was able to call that at just the right time.
Will Recker's been a big pickup for Toronto, transferring from Tri-City in her first year here for Toronto Roller Derby. Beaver Mansbridge and Libralian now, the 2 jammers who had such strong first halves, matching up once again. Libralian goes to the inside. Beaver tries to follow her, gets knocked out, forced to reset. Now Libralian gets by, gets a kick to the front of the pack, and is through as lead jammer, but Beaver quick to get through as well. Has about 40 feet to make up.
Meanwhile, the box empties for Queen City. And so they've got reinforcements now, and we've got a very brisk pace here right now as Toronto's blockers are trying to get up towards the front and save their points.
And Midnight Maniac and Vagina Warrior just trying to catch up to the pack again after coming out of the penalty box. They never quite do. And that jam comes to its conclusion with no points on the board.
Roller Sports Canada provides insurance and support for all Canadian roller sports. Visit them at rollersports.ca. Also find them on Facebook at RSC Roller Derby.
So a rare pack advantage here for Toronto as there's 2 Queen City blockers in the Camp Roller Derby penalty box. It'll be a slight advantage, 3-2. And we're seeing Boxcar starting with the star for the first time this game. She did pick up 2 points on a start pass, and she gets her first lead of the game, 1 for 1 so far as Incinerator held at the back of the pack. Betty Bomber, Monster Muffin, and Will Recker doing a nice job on the defense, but Blackrock Bruiser comes in to try and split them apart. And a nice clean pass for Boxcar. 5 points on the Grand Slam. Toronto's first points of the second half coming here just over 7 minutes in. Boxcar getting physical with the Queen City pivot.
Yeah, it was number 60, Pepper Sticks. Boxcar again with another 5-point pass. First double-digit jam here.
And the second Toronto jammer to pick up double-digit points in this game. And she's coming around quickly. Another scoring pass gets knocked to the inside. That jam ends, but a big pickup for Toronto. 13 points. And their first 13 points of the second half. 167 now, 44, 8 minutes in. Boxcar with an inspired jam.
Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a confidence boost right now for this team. Struggling a little bit in the early goings of the second half to find their legs.
The last league she played for was Thunder Bay, Northern Ontario. Number 51, Dana Skullcrusher out there to jam against Devachka for Toronto. Dana Skullcrusher had 14 points in the first half, picks up lead jammer status here.
Devachka, meanwhile, stuck at the back at turn 1. Not getting any quarter here from the Furies. They're not giving her any room to work with. However, Bigley Smalls there with the big drawback on Dana Skullcrusher. Forces her to reset.
Skullcrusher now comes up against those three Toronto blockers again, and Will Recker this time drags her back, and Devachka gets called on a cutting penalty. It's going to be another power jam here for Queen City, just as Toronto was starting to pick up a little bit of momentum. And again, penalties doing them in. They're doing a good job there of holding off Skullcrusher. Skullcrusher finally through, picks up lead jammers. No, sorry, picked up 5 points. She was the lead jammer, called it off, ending that jam.
Now starting to see a couple of Toronto skaters getting into some penalty trouble. Just had Bigley Smalls picking up her 5th visit to the Camp Roller Derby penalty box for a direction of gameplay penalty. Monster Muffin, number 333, also has served 5 box trips as well.
Those are very important blockers for Toronto, too. Now, power start opportunity for Libralian. Toronto trying to mix things up by shifting around a lot on the start, but it didn't work to their advantage. Libralian threw his lead jammer.
Pack stays at the 12:34 Skako's start line. Does not pay off for Toronto, though, as Libralian makes quick work on that pass. Devachka now out of the penalty box like a bull in a china shop, and that is going to be a back blocking penalty, so right back to Camp Roller Derby she goes.
Wow, she came in very hot coming out of the penalty box, and more penalty trouble for Toronto here in the second half as Libralian continues to carve up the track and those packs. 10 points already for the superstar jammer for Queen City. Dead stop back at turn 1.
Now for Devachka, those are only her first 2 penalties, but they do come back to back, and that's going to cost her.
Betty Bomber there with the drag back on Libralian, who comes in. Has one to beat now, Bigley Smalls on the second straightaway. Bigley Smalls able to get a hit on, but couldn't knock her out of bounds. And Libralian able to stay in, picks up 5 more points, calls it off. Another double-digit jam for Libralian. 15 more points on the board for Queen City.
Yeah, we are seeing, again, some physicality happening here, but Bigley Smalls and Betty Bomber not afraid to lay the body right now. Toronto trying to throw everything they have in their arsenal against Libralian and the other Furies jammers. Incinerator now with the power start on the 12:34 Skako start line. Toronto does have a full complement of blockers to start this one. Stabby Road, Bigley Smalls, Joss Whelan, and Watson. A forearm penalty being issued to Libralian. Incinerator, thank you. Devachka has already returned from the 12:34 Skako penalty box with the start pass to Bigley Smalls.
So this will be a full 2-minute jam and a power jam opportunity here now for Toronto. Queen City on a 63-13 run to start the second half, but Bigley Smalls looking to get something going here. 5 points. Of course, 10 of those 13 points coming on that one boxcar jam as well. Bickley Smalls, though, has a dead stop pack to work with, is around the pack quickly, goes to the outside, just gets by Vagina Warrior, but couldn't stay in bounds. That will force her to reset. Comes through, tries to go through the inside. Again, facing two Queen City blockers, able to shrug them off, gets through. 5-point pickup now, 10 points on the jam for Bickley Smalls. Incinerator of the penalty box through the pack quickly. Power jam has ended. A full track lead, though, for Bickley Smalls as she looks for a third scoring pass on this jam. Of course, there is no lead jammer. 40 seconds remain. Incinerator with a nice little hop over turn one. And Devachka, 4 points now for Queen City. Both jammers scoring here. 30 seconds to go. Queen City scored 207 points earlier against Tri-City, nearing the double century mark now as Watson, a.k.a. Getcha Kicks, gets sent to the Derby camp penalty box on a track cut. Incinerator scores 5, comes around quickly for another score as Bickley Smalls is trapped suddenly in the pack. And another quick pickup for Incinerator, so what looked like it was going to be a very positive jam when things started off here has now gotten a little out of hand for Toronto. When it's all said and done, that's a 14-10 jam in Queen City's favor, and they have passed the double century mark, 201 now to 54. And it looks like, I was wondering about that Bickley Smalls, and it looks like she's going to get a blocking with the head, and I believe she may have picked up an extra penalty as well.
And it would appear that she's now got a full whiteboard too.
Right, so that would be 7 penalties, a double penalty, so a full minute power jam for Queen City. Wow, Toronto roller derby in trouble here with 16 minutes to go in the second half.
Yeah, so we're going to see if we can get some clarification on what's happening here. It does appear that Toronto has called an official review, but if what we're seeing on the whiteboard holds, Bickley Smalls is currently in the box. Her whiteboard line is full, so that would be her 7th penalty. That would mean that Toronto would have to sub out a jammer and lose Bickley mostly first and foremost as a blocker.
Yeah.
Though she has taken a couple of star passes and was running with it there in the late going. That jam did go 14 all. However, it did allow Queen City to get over the double century mark. They're currently showing a 201 to 58 lead with 16 and a half minutes left on the clock.
Well, if Toronto's looking for any positives, it's a good thing that this happened at the end of a jam and not in the middle of one, and they would have been without a jammer for the full jam. So at least now they'll be able to replace their jammer in the penalty box. If this happens to be the case, and Bickley Smalls has indeed fouled out, as it looks like she has. We're still just waiting for a bit of an update. Now, we did mention that Toronto had won 3 times against Queen City over the years. Queen City won the first meeting way back in 2010, and then from 2011 to 2014, Toronto roller derby won 3 games in a row before Queen City was able to end that winning streak last year at the Division I playoffs. It was a very offensive-heavy game. It was a 232 to 229 victory. Obviously leading by a significantly higher margin this time around. But there's still lots of time left. Toronto could certainly narrow that gap over here in the last 16 minutes of the second half. And
during this official roller derby athletics timeout, a quick thank you to our production staff here operating this broadcast on layer9.ca and WFTDA TV. Our producer is Honey Boom Boom. Our camera operators are Wheels of Misfortune, Angard, and Demolition Dawn. And, of course, the brains and brawn behind layer9.ca would be Mr. Force. Thank you, one and all, for putting together this broadcast.
We also like to thank Robotomy, who came in briefly to direct things as well for Honey Boom Boom. Fully volunteer-operated broadcast this weekend and every weekend here from layer9.ca. Of course, up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you can get lots of information about the teams that are playing right now, about the schedule here for the 2016 Quad City Chaos. There's even a donate option if you'd like to put a little money in the coffers. 100% of those donations will go back toward the boutcasts here in Toronto. It's our first first Toronto Roller Derby All-Stars broadcast of the year. Mr. Whistler, we have an update on that official review.
We do. So the challenge by Toronto on that was to the first of the 2 penalties incurred by Bigley Smalls, the blocking to the head. Blocking with the head penalty that she picked up, which was her 6th. They were challenging that it was not her initiation. However, that call stands. And immediately following that, she also picked up a low blocking penalty. So with that double whammy, she does indeed pick up 7. She has fouled out of the game. So Toronto is subbing Beaver Mansbridge to take her spot. And Beaver Mansbridge has got a minute to serve in the Camp Roller Derby penalty box. So she's going to be pitching a tent and getting a little comfortable by the fire right now.
So a full 67 old school power jam here for Queen City. They've got a slight pack advantage as well. And very quickly off the 12:34 skate company start line, Libralian picks up lead jammer status. Watson also in the penalty box. And that gives the 4-3 pack advantage to Queen City. Will Wrecker and Low Blow Palooza trying to work against Libralian, but she's able to make quick work of that pack and pick up another 5 points.
Once again, we're seeing Queen City picking a goat. Right now they've got Victory Lap trapped at the back, who does finally break free. So Toronto trying to swarm Libralian. Low Blow Palooza trying to push her over the line, unable to do so. Victory Lap then getting peeled off there by 198, a Blackrock Bruiser. Another 5 points for Libralian.
And once again, Queen City has picked up a goat here with the 60-second penalty. They thought it was back at the 2013 Quad City Chaos. Grabbing a goat. And Libralian, just beautiful footwork to cut right through the middle of that pack. 15 more points on Libralian's score sheet.
Yeah, they were able to run that a bit long, of course, because of that double penalty. Beaver Mansbridge is now standing at the Camp Roller Derby penalty box. But this will be a power start, looks like, for Incinerator with the 666. Time left, almost the halfway point of the second. 15 minutes left on the period clock. Queen City out in front, 2:16:58. Incinerator up the outside line very quickly, picks up lead. Beaver Mansbridge knocked to the outside, drawn back here now by Midnight Maniac. Has to re-enter, and this is giving a lot of extra time for Incinerator. Incinerator now working up at the front. Wolverina with the takeout. Betty Bomber with the drawback as they team up. Beaver Mansbridge does break through now on the initial pass.
And Beaver Mansbridge really has been shut down here in the second half. So Queen City, the one weakness they showed in the first half was Beaver Mansbridge's jamming, and they seem to have adjusted for that now. She's not having much luck here in the second half at all. 2:20 now, 58 is the lead.
Queen City off and running, a very technical, very, very smart bench. Indeed, making that adjustment at the half, saying this is okay, we're going to target that jammer. That's the one getting the most success.
Queen City had the pleasure of playing Gotham in the Division I roller playoffs last year. And that has to strengthen your team somehow, just by osmosis. Playing against Gotham, it was quite a substantial loss, but nonetheless, the experience must have been worth it. And it's going to be a back block penalty to, I believe that's Murphy jamming for Queen City, and now Lexicon is wearing the star for Toronto, takes a massive hit from Schreier. She does take off her cap. She had an opportunity to pick up lead, perhaps not seeing that the jammer had gone to the penalty box.
And then it was Bricks Hithouse who had the drawback on Lexi as well. So again, we're seeing some blocker tandems really paying off for both sides now. One with the takeout, one with the drawback. Monster Muffin dropped to her knees and just has to kind of turtle for a second just to protect herself while all this madness is happening around her. Lexicon still with 2 to beat and a really tight formation that they've got. Now we see Toronto come in to try to do some offense and free their jammer. Penalty is over to Murphy.
Monster Muffin, though, heading to the penalty box now for Toronto. They will be at a disadvantage in the pack. This is going to go the full 2 minutes. Murphy through, puts the star back on, now eligible to score. Lexicon still trying to make her way through the pack and still, I believe, has a star scrunched up in her hand, but having a hard time right now with Bricks Hithouse at turn 4. Gets knocked down, but stays in bounds. Bricks Hithouse goes right back to work. And Lexi just trying to find a way around, finally able to get by her, and then right there for the defense was Black Rock Bruiser, the pivot. And now they push Lexi to the inside. And Lexicon still struggling, now getting some help from Monster Muffin. Schreier, last line of defense, and Lexicon takes a hit but does get through on her initial pass.
Schreier with a late hit there, gets an out-of-play call, so she's going to take a seat in the Camp Roller Derby penalty box.
And there are the first Queen City points of the jam. Wow, what a jam. 2 minutes, 4 points were scored. And
Guillotine not happy.
Oh, what was Lexicon given lead jammer status at the end of that? Because I don't believe she should have been. She had taken off her star. And that might have been what he was complaining about. Nonetheless, it didn't do any damage to Queen City, really. They were able to pick up 4 points, and that was very close to the end of that 2-minute jam anyway.
Well, and it looked like what Guillotine was signaling was that he felt that there should not have been points awarded to Toronto there, and that is indeed, we briefly saw them come up. Do have 4 points on the board for the Furies. But while the officials talk this over, we'll just remind you that this official timeout is brought to you by Roller Derby Athletics, the official training partner of Toronto Roller Derby. For off-skate fitness training, check out their programs at rollerderbyathletics.com. Roller Derby Athletics is also sponsoring tournament MVPs. There will be MVPs awarded following the final game tomorrow on Sunday, and each tournament MVP will receive a gift certificate for the RDA Stride Booster Advanced Level Training Program worth $79 apiece. Athletes get access to all Stride Booster and premium content for 3 months extensions upon request. MVPs are also going to be winning prize packs from Diva Cup, so thank you to the fine folks at Diva Cup as well.
Fans of Queen City Roller Derby, you're not going to have an opportunity to see your Lake Effect Furies skate tomorrow, as their Quad City Chaos will be done following the end of this game. But the Sub-Zero Sirens, the newly named B team for Queen City with a completely unique roster, will be playing tomorrow at 3 p.m. against Toronto Roller Derby's B team. But for fans of Toronto Roller Derby All-Stars, they've got one more game to close out their Quad City Chaos, and that'll be the 5 p.m. game tomorrow against their Southern Ontario rivals, Tri-City Thunder. That should be a great game. Those two teams have not met, believe it or not, despite the proximity, they've not met since 2012 here at the Quad City Chaos.
We are seeing trackside number 198, Black Rock Bruiser, being helped over to the medics table with the skate off, and doesn't look like it's going to be anything too major, but there may be some concern.
Papa Wow is tending to her. All right, so back on the track, it looks like we're ready to get things going. Beaver Mansbridge and Libralian will be matched up once again. It's been the best duel of this game so far. 2-2 in the pack as the Camp Roller Derby penalty box is full. A pivot and a blocker each. Betty Bomber and Watson out there against Bricks Hithouse, and Ivana Leher out for Queen City in the teal.
12:34 Skateco's jammer line, meanwhile, looks like it's sporting Beaver Mansbridge and Libralian. Officials are still conversing in the center of the track, though, so we're not quite ready to get underway.
And as we've said, we get a full day of Derby for you tomorrow. I've told you about the Queen City B team and the ToRD game, but starting at 11 a.m., we will be back live on layer9.ca and WFTDA.tv, and we will have Queen City's Sub-Zero Sirens playing their first of 2 games tomorrow, I should mention, against Montreal Sexpos. And then at 1 p.m., we've got the Royal Cities Bruteleggers coming in to take on Roller Derby Quebec. 2 D2 teams that will be vying for the Division 2 playoffs this year. Very impressed by this Bruteleggers club. If you want to see an up-and-coming Canadian roller derby team, be sure to check them out. They went 8-1 in their first year in the WFTDA play last year. Have gotten off to a hot start as well this year with a big victory over Lansing just a few weeks ago. So they'll be looking to build on that as they take on Roller Derby Quebec, who is making their WFTDA debut here in 2016. Have gone 0-2 with losses to Capital City and Muddy River, and then coming into the tournament, and they lost both of their games today, 212-97 to Toronto Roller Derby All-Stars, and then to Tri-City 193-139. A strong showing, though, from Roller Derby Quebec here in their first season of full WFTDA play.
Yeah, and that second game against Tri-City, the game immediately preceding this one, it looked like in the late going they still had a shot. They continuously were only about 25 points behind, and it was only in the last 3 or 4 jams that Tri-City pulled further away.
Well, Quebec does not get tired, as we've learned. Every level of play they have, their conditioning is just absolutely unbelievable. Beaver Mansbridge picks up a much-needed lead jammer status for Toronto Roller Derby, and a cutting the track penalty called on Libralian. Power jam for Toronto, and with Beaver Mansbridge on the track, the skaters in pink gotta like this. She's working against 2 now. Ivana Layerhout goes to her knees, gets right back up quickly. Bricks Hithouse tries to knock her out of bounds, goes down. Beaver stays in. 5 points for Toronto. Will Recker back on the track for Toronto. Schreier back out there for Queen City. Beaver Mansbridge coming around quickly. You can see that pack now stopped up, all 4 Queen City blockers right in the middle of the second straightaway. Beaver gets knocked to the outside. Bricks Hithouse with a nice drag back, pulling her all the way back, but then falls, and Beaver Mansbridge very quickly takes advantage to get through and pick up another 5 points. Forearm penalty sending the Queen City blocker to the penalty box. Libralian back on the track, still on her initial pass, not eligible to score, does get through quickly. Beaver coming around now on her 3rd scoring pass of this jam, tries to go low around the block, gets knocked to the outside and calls it off. A big jam for Toronto as we near the 20-minute mark. 2 more points on that last pass, so it's going to be an 11-0 jam. 2:24-69 now is the score.
Well, we had 2 rarities in that jam, Nerd. We had a Libralian penalty. We also had Libralian not getting lead. 2 of those things, but Beaver Mansbridge, who, as we discussed earlier, was by far the leading point getter in this game earlier, was shut down earlier in this half. It was clear that Queen City was targeting her, but she had a bit of room on that one, and with those 11 points, makes a bit of a dent.
Incinerator peaks up lead jammer status over Boxcar, out for the second time at the start, but Boxcar is through. Boxcar picked up lead and 10 points in her previous jam. She's got a lot of track to make up here, though, as Incinerator quickly comes around, looking to score, picks up 1. Now hits that 3 wall of Toronto blockers, gets knocked to the outside. Nice D. Oh, looks like she did get all 3 points before getting knocked to the outside. 3-0 jam for Queen City. Nice response from the Lake Effect Furies. Seemed very composed, the Furies, not rattled by anything. Barely have given up momentum in any of their games so far, or both their games today.
Now we are looking at Davachka, number 138 on the 1234 skate code jammer line for Toronto. Number 51, Dana Skullcrusher with the star for Queen City. 4 wall up at the front, a bit of a knot now being broken up there by Ivana Layerhout.
Ivana, though, couldn't quite free her, and instead Betty Bomber moves back to try and work some offense, but Davachka gets knocked around by Low Hits Griffin. Penalty going to Lake Effect Furies blocker for direction of gameplay. Might open up something for Devo. It does. Another lead jammer status for Toronto. 2 out of the last 3 now. More penalties, though, sending Stabby Road and to the penalty box. And also Queen City blocker as well. 3 2-pack advantage for Toronto. The star is in the hand of Dana Skullcrusher as Davachka comes through for a 5-point pickup. Another penalty to a Queen City blocker leaves them briefly with 1 blocker on the track.
Betty Bomber getting dropped hard there by Midnight Maniac. While that's happening, though, scoring pass by Davachka picking up 4, and now Midnight Maniac receiving the star, trying to get it on the helmet before she hits the pack. Not in time to score. Any final points come in on that final pass?
Some thought.
Skating out of bounds penalty being issued to Davachka for the call-off. Skating out of bounds before she called it. No points awarded on that final pass.
Tough break after a big jam, and this has been a bit of a trend for Toronto. They pick up a little bit of momentum, have a nice big jam, and then something just derails it. So a 10-point pickup for Davachka now, 79 points for Toronto. They have passed the 71 that Tri-City scored against Queen City earlier, but Queen City offensively have been much stronger this game as well with 227 points.
The timeout has been called. Appears to be called by Queen City.
Yeah, by
the
Queen City.
Signal is a little bit hard to pick up, so it's a Queen City official team timeout. Another roller derby athletics timeout. I'm going to take this opportunity actually to tell you a bit about Camp Roller Derby, though. We've been talking all game about Camp Roller Derby, the sponsor of the penalty box. And Camp Roller Derby, well, Roller Derby goes to camp. I mean, what else do you need to know? Well, we'll tell you. Gather for a fun, nostalgic, back-to-basics camp weekend with skaters, officials, and organizers from roller derby leagues across Ontario. This weekend fosters both structured and casual opportunities for brainstorming, idea sharing, and cooperation mixed with complementary off-skates activities. This unique camp program is fun, full of learning opportunities, and it's going to take place in picturesque Camp Eden Woods in Haliburton, Ontario, August 19th to 21st. If you get in before the early bird offer ends on March 31st, there's going to be some big opportunities. Find out more online at camprollerderby.ca.
Camp Roller Derby is awesome. I went last year. It was amazing. I felt like a teenager. It was like being at summer camp all over again. It was a lot of fun.
Do you get patches at Camp Roller Derby?
You get patches. You can have patches, blankets, and beer. That was the one difference between my teenage years. All right, on the track, Libralian has picked up where she left off.
I was going to say you weren't in the scout troop that I was.
Sanctioned beer, maybe I should say. Points here against Toronto. Nice footwork, staying on the outside, staying in bounds, absorbing those hits. Devachka now back out of the penalty box, coming up upon the pack quickly. Gets knocked around, though. She has the star in her hand. Nice hit from a low hits Griffin, keeping her from her pivot. Will Recker now reaches back, does pick up the star. Libralian through with another pass, and Will Recker, though, is our jammer now. Gets that star on quickly and hustling to catch up to Libralian. Libralian sees just a little bit of room on the inside. Loblo-Palooza able to lay a big hit on her, but unfortunately it couldn't knock her out of bounds. 2 points picked up for Libralian on that last pass, but a nice little steal there of two for Toronto as well. 13-2 was the jam. 2:40 to 81, 6 minutes to go. Looks like Boxcar is going to get another opportunity with the star. Why not? Toronto looking for success, broadening their jammer rotation a bit. Boxcar now works to the inside. Incinerator powering right through the middle. Boxcar resets, now goes out, and now comes through. Her second lead jammer status picked up on the half, and she's done it in 3 jams. A very efficient second half here for Boxcar. Incinerator through, but half a track back. Boxcar makes a nice hard turn at turn number 2. Goes outside in. All 4 points picked up for Toronto.
And now this time it's going to be a Toronto team timeout. Again, there's a Roller Derby Athletics team timeouts being called by Flying Brian and the Toronto Roller Derby All-Stars. So I guess they're going to see if they can build a bit of momentum on what just happened. It does seem maybe a little odd to, like, just as you're picking up that momentum, to call a timeout. Certainly that one of the things that's going to happen is after that timeout, Queen City is going to put Libralian back out.
Yes, that has been their strategy.
Their modus
in the past.
operandi.
Yep. It seems like a pretty positive bench. You can see the Toronto skaters talking there, big smiles. Flying Brian's doing some talking. He's got a big smile on his face, even though you're seeing his back. Now bringing it in for a cheer. As we mentioned, this is a brand spanking new Toronto roster. Betty Balmer returns after a year hiatus. A couple of these skaters, like Beaver Mansbridge, Monster Muffin, were called up to Toronto late in the season last year from the B team. But this is their first full year. And Monster Muffin, speaking of, sitting on 6 penalties, so that's something we're going to have to watch over the last 5 minutes here.
She is out there right now alongside Commander Will Recker and Loblo-Palooza in the blocking core.
Only one Queen City blocker has 4 penalties, and that's Midnight Maniac right now, number 46. Loblo-Palooza headed to the penalty box. Will Recker, Monster Muffin, some nice defense on Libralian, trying to buy some time, but Schreier with just a little bit of offense was all Libralian needed. Lead jammer status, and good call on putting Libralian out there after the timeout. That's the punishment Toronto gets for taking that break, and Libralian just goes right through those 2 blockers. A nice little pop from Ivana layer out. Clears the final path.
Commander Will Recker now on her way to the Camp Roller Derby penalty box.
Ooh. So Queen City continues to cruise now. 4:20 to go. 2:44 to 86. And they're sticking to their game plan. We have not seen them waver at all. They haven't broadened their jammer rotation. They are just going at it like clockwork. I think this is a big statement tournament for Queen City, and this is definitely a big statement game against their longtime rivals here in Toronto. Oh, and Incinerator gets through very quickly. Lead jammer status again for Queen City.
Meanwhile, Toronto has returned Boxcar to the jammer rotation. That could also be part of what that timeout was, is give her a bit of a breather so they could run her on a shorter leash.
Queen City has a long history, given its proximity to Canada, a long history playing here in north of the border. A long history with Hamilton Roller Derby, the Hammer City Roller Girls, with Montreal Roller Derby. They actually, one of the home teams from Queen City Roller Girls, played in the first ever Beast of the East tournament back in 2008, the Devil Dollies. And they played one of the first, I believe it was the second cross-border travel team game against the Hammer City A team. Timeout being called by Queen City, so lots of timeouts to stop the clock here in the final 5 minutes of this last game of the opening day of the Quad City Chaos.
Yeah, so with that, after this one has been done, then both teams will have one timeout left. Toronto does not have an official review left in their disposal, but Queen City does. No more games left today, so they can take as much time as they like, Derby Nerd.
That's right, they certainly can. Queen City will be sticking around, not the A team, but the B team playing tomorrow. Libralian on the bench for the Sub-Zero Sirens. Yeah, I mentioned Queen City played one of the earliest ever cross-border games. The first, here's a little nerd fact, the first ever cross-border flat-track roller derby game was between the Rocky Mountain Roller Girls and the Oil City Derby Girls out of Edmonton back in December 2006.
Somebody should put a facts like that in a book, Derby Nerd.
Maybe they have. Maybe they have. All right, Libralian back on the line again, getting a lot of work here late in the game. You can see Queen City is not letting up at all, and she's going to face off against number 25, Lexicon, in the pink for Toronto.
First time we've seen Lexi out there with the star for a little while.
Yeah, Boxcar seemed to muscle into the rotation there and had some success, so that Toronto kept going with it. Looks like a blocking with the head penalty being called on the jammer, the Queen City jammer, heading to the penalty box. Libralian's second penalty of the half, so another power jam opportunity here. Unfortunately, Toronto not able to do much with it the first time around. And now they're looking for a goat as well, but they cannot quite hold back Schreier.
Well, exactly. That's the problem with that strategy there. When you pick Sabrina Schreier as your target, very hard to contain. Lexicon, though, does pick up lead jammer. Going to see what she can do with the remnants of this power jam.
Lexicon now coming up on the pack as Queen City starts to skate, trying to paceline it. One is dragged back. Lexi has at least a point, it looks like. Libralian, though, already back on the track. Penalty has been served. Nice defense once again on the power kill from Queen City. Libralian shrugs off victory lap, finds a way through the inside. Initial pass complete. Now eligible to score. Lexicon able to get through, calls it off, picked up a few points. How many? All 5 points picked up for Lexicon on that one. But a tough 5 points, I should say, for Toronto Roller Derby. 2:48 now to 91, a minute 40 to go.
Yeah, so Toronto is using Boxcar on off right now in the jammer rotation. Boxcar is lining up currently on the 1234 Skateco jammer line. I am seeing Monster Muffin sitting in the Camp Roller Derby penalty box. If that is true and if she needs to be there, that will be her 7th trip.
Still sitting on 6 on the board. So we'll see how this plays out. Oh, and a procedure is being called. Now, again, we're speculating, but Just Mo one of our officials has come over to the bench and is discussing with Libralian that there's a potential procedure call being given to her. So this power jam is potentially going to continue. Yeah, well, a lot of action going on in the penalty box. We'll try and give you a full update while we can. It looks like Monster Muffin is being sent off, so you are right. She has fouled out of this game. And indeed, though, Libralian heading to the penalty box. So that seems to be the big news. Monster Muffin out of this one, a 7-penalty foul out, and Libralian picking up a procedure penalty in that last jam will send her to the penalty box. Power start opportunity for Boxcar and the 3 Toronto blockers on the track. All 4 blockers, though, out there for Queen City on the power kill. Boxcar looks inside. Watson, the pivot, setting up there. Queen City seeing that and moving forward. Boxcar hits that wall. Finds a little bit of a gap. Wiggles her way through. Nice recovery by Vagina Warrior. Nice reset by all 4 of the Queen City blockers at the front of that pack. No, Boxcar with some excellent footwork makes her way through. Lead jammer status for Toronto Roller Derby All-Stars.
Boxcar with those really smooth strides, though, but gets that momentum going with a bit of a hop and step, bit of a deer on ice move.
Has been skating flat track roller derby since 2006. Gets through.
Just gets destroyed
by
there.
Vagina Warrior.
But Vagina Warrior, who's going to go to the Camp Roller Derby penalty box with the privilege of having made that hit.
Libralian back out of the penalty box, through in her pass, and that's going to force the call off. But 5 more points for Boxcar. What a great second half it's been for the veteran. And Toronto over these last few minutes has really put a bit of a dent into the Queen City lead.
It does look like Toronto is calling their final team timeout at this point. Might as well. Less than a minute left on the clock.
And you can see Toronto not being dismayed at all by this performance. You can see the pack and the jammer on the jam line hugging. There's under a minute to go. This could be the final jam. And, we've seen in the past Toronto start off brilliantly. Even last season had an amazing Quad City Chaos. Looked to be like they were about to have a breakthrough year, and things kind of came apart for the team. So having a slow tournament or perhaps a perceived poor start might not be all bad. This is very, very early in the season for Toronto, and this is really something for this very new roster and inexperienced roster.
Well, and it's also
to build on.
They are also doing a combined roster with A and B teams this year for training. And obviously you do have to submit a 20-person charter, but it is giving them a little more flexibility both in their training, who their potential call-ups are going to be when they do have to fill gaps. So it's going to hopefully create a little more balance and some smoother results as the season goes on. Are missing a couple of significant veterans this weekend with injury.
That's right, including Mad Bags, one of their key jammers. But Libralian is lead, and Beaver Mansbridge, though, has fought her way through the pack on her initial pass, trying to catch Libralian, who's already got 1 scoring pass in, 5 more points, 15 seconds to go on the game clock, 1:20 on the jam clock. Libralian gets through, taps her hits, calls it off, and Toronto Roller Derby does not have a timeout to stop the clock, and it looks like Queen City is going to let it play out. And that's it, your unofficial final now, 257-96. Queen City, certainly the victors. Just going to wait for confirmation of the final score. You can see a few skaters stuck in the Camp Derby penalty box at the end of this one. What a dominant performance. The biggest win ever for Queen City over Toronto, and the first time they've managed to beat Toronto Roller Derby 2 times in a row.
Yeah, and again, penalties, the story, I would say, here for Toronto. 2 foul outs in this game, Monster Muffin and Bigley Smalls. Fairly heavy on the penalty side, but much more even on the Queen City side of the ledger. Seeing 3 skaters with 4 and a number of skaters with 3. Nobody really in any significant trouble on that side. So those late jammer penalties, Libralian, nowhere near enough to make a difference in her performance overall today or this weekend in general.
So that's it for the Quad City Chaos for the Lake Effect Furies. 2-0. 2 and done. here on the opening day. An impressive performance. Look out for this team as they try and make their way back into the D1 playoffs for the second year in a row. And it's been quite a journey for Queen City over the last 3 years. And the Toronto faithful here giving their All-Stars a big cheer as they take their lap as well. And as we've talked about, a real Toronto should, and they seem to be taking it very positively, and look at this as a starting point for what's a very new team, very new roster. As you mentioned, they've even had a reorganization at the travel team level. So a lot to build on for Toronto. And a lot of positives, certainly in individual performances we've seen from Toronto Roller Derby today as well.
For sure. But I think the real story, or the main story here at the moment, is the statement in both of these games today by the Lake Effect Furies.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, showing that their appearance in Division 1 last year was no fluke, showing that the off-season rankings adjustments may just be temporary.
Yep.
And I'm not going to be surprised at all to see them back in the top 40 very, very soon.
Yeah, quite a statement being made here. So that's it. The first day of Quad City Chaos is a wrap. Saw Lake Effect Furies pick up a couple wins. Tri-City Roller Derby and Toronto Roller Derby both picking up a single victory as well over Roller Derby Quebec. And as we mentioned, we'll be back live on air at 11 a.m. tomorrow for 4 more games. So on behalf of the Layer9.ca crew and Mr. Whistler here to my right, I'm the Derby Nerd. Thank you for tuning in to the Quad City Chaos 2016, and we'll see you at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Good stuff?
Good, well done.
Felt better last game. Out of all the 4 games we've done, that was the most